Welcome to the couch.
Okay, hold on.
What?
We're starting. Okay. I didn't know if we were starting.
Great. That you just gave me the intro.
Okay, ready?
Do it.
Here we go.
Check.
Welcome to the Couch Time Podcast, where we give you tools to connect with your kids and point them to Jesus. I'm Josh.
I'm Steven.
And I'm Aaron.
And last night, we all did very, very different things.
Yeah.
And so this morning, what we want to do is just tell you guys a little bit about what we did at each campus, and then maybe give you a practical way, a practical thought from what we did that can maybe apply to all parents, no matter what campus your kids are at. So, Aaron, I'd love for maybe you to go first. What'd
All right,
you do,
I'm
and what can parents think about?
So we do something. We actually are starting it new this year. We call it Small Group Sundays. So we're going to do 2 of them a semester. And the idea is, and part of the reason is because we have new small groups this year. All the students are in new small groups with different leaders. So and we're hoping that it's going to be something that is ongoing for moving into the next year. We're not wanting to change it up, but something to help solidify relationships and community in the small groups. We're going to have these small group nights where the goal is go do something that's not normal, that is off campus, off site, change of scenery, and that is I gotta be careful what I say. Crazy. So something that's going to be memorable.
Sure, memorable, for
and
sure.
it's all about creating memories, creating inside jokes, creating stories together that will enhance the relational capital, so that when we're having small group times, it's like we'll have stuff to pull from that make it exclusive as far as the group. And because what we say about our small groups is we don't want you to be best friends with the people in your small group. We want small group to be a place where you can come, where you can learn, you can grow, you can be safe, and it's a trusted space so that you can have the tools to be vulnerable, to be open and honest, but then something to take to your friend circles, wherever those are at. So it's almost like the community is an anchor for the students. We want them to have that they come back to consistently, that they'll be able to fill up. So it was an awesome time. For the first one, what we did, though, it was a little bit different since it's brand new for the leaders as well as the students. So instead of all the small groups, we just had all the guys go off site somewhere, and the girls all went off site somewhere else. So the guys and girls were together, and there was a lot of food involved. There was a lot of soda.
Let's go.
There was a lot of laughter, a lot of fun, a lot of games played, a lot of just jokes. Cool. It was pretty goofy, but I think really successful. So that's what we did.
Nice.
It was a fun time.
Nice. So from that, what is something that maybe parents can think about or encourage their students with?
Yeah.
Even connect with them on.
I cannot stress enough community. And I think the Bible talks and has a lot to say about community, and we as a church push community. So even in the adults, community groups that we're supposed to be in. And I think it's all about being real and bumping shoulders with other people and being able to know each other well enough so that we can spur each other on to love and good deeds. We can bear each other's burdens. We can confront each other and call sin out in each other. We can confess. All of those things that we're supposed to be practicing as Christians happen only when you're in deep community where you know people and you are known. So a lot of the students have no idea what that looks like. Most of them naturally resist all of the things that I just said because of sin, because of our flesh. It's like we just want friends who are going to help us have fun.
Right.
But if we're going to practice what the Bible says, you've got to be intentional about it. So what I would encourage you as parents to do with your kids is to, we say this a lot on the podcast, but you got to be modeling it.
Sure.
And if you're not in a community group,
please get
shame on you. Go get in a community group.
Right.
Because they need to see it. They're going to follow suit, I think, with what you model in a lot of ways. But then secondly, I said that it needs to be intentional, and I don't know, Stephen and Josh, if you guys have experienced this, but community, you have to lean into it. And what I mean by that is you have to view it as an investment.
Yeah.
So it's like, hey, Stephen, you got a really hard season of life right now. It takes me leaning in to care about your hard season
Right.
in order to bear it with you, to encourage you, and to be a friend, and that will enhance our relationship.
Yeah.
And it's like, naturally, it's like, man, Stephen, I'm going to want to talk about it, but like, what do I do? It takes time and effort to think about, to pray for. So I would encourage you as parents to talk to your kids about how they can lean into the community that is the youth group, that is their small group in particular. So kids that they might not naturally be friends with, it's like, hey, reach out to them. It's like, talk to them. It's like, how are you praying for the people in your small group? How are you praying for your small group leader? So it's just a matter of intentionally thinking about and taking steps to reach out and connect with the community.
Yep.
So I think the parents, I think you parents can encourage your kids to take little steps just by asking them about it.
Yep.
So-
That's really good. I love that. Well, Steven,
Yeah.
IND, Independence. What'd you guys do? And what's something parents can take away from it?
So, in Independence, we finished our series last week, the Sunday before yesterday, and with a lesson on mission from Eric, which we talked about. So then what we did this Sunday was we felt like we didn't get practical enough the last week, and we wanted to give students just super practical examples of what it looks like to live on mission as a middle school and high school student. So we had a little panel. It was Eric Northrup, Abby Owens, which is one of our leaders, and Izzy Borden, which is a junior at Calvary, and me. And we just shared some stories from our lives of what it looked like when we were living on mission, encouraging stories where we failed, the ideas that we had in our minds, how we prayed, those types of things, to give kids an idea of what it could look like if they really decided, I'm going to enter into people's brokenness with the purpose of wanting to share the truth of Jesus with them. So it was cool. There's a couple things that stuck out. We left them with the one thing was just think about who's close to you and far from God that you could be praying for, purposefully going towards and entering into their life and sharing life on life with them. And as that relationship builds through inside jokes, through community, through hanging out, there becomes opportunities after opportunities to share the gospel with them. And so in groups, some of the things that we began to talk about is some of the kids were like, one thing that's hard for me is I feel like people just don't care to like talk about Jesus, like especially kids that don't know Jesus. Like it's hard. Like I don't even know what to talk. They don't seem to care when I'm sharing with them. And I got to encourage them, and hopefully this is encouragement too. So like I said, a lot of kids are going to feel like it doesn't matter, and what do they do then? And I said I shared a little story. So I had a really good friend in college who was the craziest, wildest kid you'll ever meet in your life. Every sin you could think of, he's probably done it, except for murder. I don't think he's murdered anyone yet, but who knows? He was from Wales, really good friend. And I love the kid, and I got to spend time with him often. He came to Grace for Easter with me one year.
Oh, cool.
And I remember a whole drive home, so many Christians just stayed away from him. They didn't want anything to do with him because of how broken he seemed. But we had conversation after conversation about Jesus, and he never seemed to be grasping anything I said. And I'd share something, and before I could even finish sharing, he'd ask another question, and then he'd ask another question and challenge me on this and challenge me on this and argue with me before I could ever even finish an answer to one of his challenges. And then he went home, dropped out of college, went back to Wales, and years later, he messaged me when everything in his life was falling apart and dealing with depression and family members that had died and terrible, terrible things, and just reached out. He was like, do you remember all those conversations we used to have where I would just challenge you? And he remembered those times. And when it seemed like he didn't care in the moment, I was telling the kids hey, just love people.
Yes.
They won't care how much you know till they know how much you care, is what Eric said. And it's just this idea of just continue to love people, continue to spend time with people, and continue to bring up the gospel as you have opportunities. And even if your friends are turning you away and acting like they want nothing to do with it, they'll remember years later when everything wrecks in their life that you really cared for them.
Yeah.
So the encouragement I guess, for parents is just to talk to your students about who is it that they're trying to live with and love, and what conversations are they trying to have with their friends, and how are those going, and encourage them. Say, hey, you don't need to see fruit. You don't need to you don't need to see fruit. You don't need to have these awesome experiences.
Yeah.
Like, just continue to love and be faithful to their friends
Yeah.
over the long haul. And you too, as a parent, have an opportunity to love on your kids' friends.
Yeah.
In this message that this kid sent me, he referenced my mom in the car in a song that she was singing on our way to church.
That's
and
really
he
good.
remembered all of the words to this worship song. But it's because my mom was intentional about being with my friends and sharing with them. In this little moment, I didn't remember. This kid remembered
Yeah.
so specifically, and it meant so much to him. So,
Yeah.
parents, you have a lot of room too, just to love on your kids' friends
Yep.
in ways and share with them, and they'll remember even if it doesn't look like it or it doesn't
Yeah.
feel like they care.
And I want to interject to add there, like it's encouraging to me just as you share it, like 'cause it reminds me as far as the work of ministry is not, we can't save people or
Yeah.
change
Right.
people. And 1 Corinthians 3:5-11 is one of my favorite passages, and it talks about our job to plant and water seeds, but
Yes.
God alone is the one who causes the growth.
That's right.
Yeah.
And so it's like, what does it look like to faithfully plant and water seeds? And it's like, you may never see it grow.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it's like planting and watering is loving people. And
Yep.
sometimes
That's the job.
it actually feels the opposite of
Right.
fruit. It's like,
Getting
you're
nowhere.
not going to see
Right.
it. But
Yeah.
I mean, how many times we just had a baptism Sunday a week or two ago? I don't remember now, but it's testimonies. People are like,
Yeah.
5 years ago, 10 years ago, 30 years. Excuse me. 30 years ago, it's like so and so said something, or
Yep.
somebody shared something, or somebody
Right.
just loved and cared about me
Yep.
and gave me, this such attention and love. And it's like that has an impact so many years later.
For sure.
And with the students, it's like that's my testimony.
Yeah. One of the leaders in Independence, he shared his stories. When he was in student ministry, he hated God. He was an atheist,
Yeah.
wanted nothing to do with him, argued with him all the time. And his story, he's like, I don't remember a single lesson that Ryan
Yeah.
taught when I
Yeah.
was in ministry.
Yeah.
He said parents wanted me kicked out of there. Parents wanted me to have nothing to do with their kids.
Yep.
He said, and years later, when God wrecked my life, I remembered Ryan loving me and caring for me.
Patient, yeah.
And he never knew. He said, I always looked against him and arguing with him, but it meant something
Yeah.
to me that some guy loved me enough to continue to be with me
Yep.
even when I was in my brokenness.
I mean, it puts on display Christ's
Mhm.
patience and love
Yeah.
for his disciples.
So don't give up on
Yeah.
people.
I think the other thing, just with that, I think parents, the encouragement to you can also be like, don't get hung up on making sure you say all the right words.
Right.
I'm
Yeah.
guilty of this. I'm big on tone. I'm big on how you approach things, and it's all about, like you were saying, what's the impression that you're
Yep.
giving? Are you, when they look back, do they think, I was loved?
Yeah.
I don't exactly remember all the things that were said.
Yep.
Sometimes it's like, praise God, because I kind of phrase that really poorly.
Yeah.
But do I remember that mom and dad loved me?
Yeah.
Do I remember that those sorts of
Yeah.
things?
Yep.
So I think that's just the encouragement to also just not get hung up, or not to refrain from engaging in conversations because you don't know what to say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just love.
Yeah. People that have messaged me years later that were far from God.
Yeah.
They didn't remember things I had told them. They didn't remember the gospel that I shared really necessarily. They remembered some things I got to tell them further afterwards.
Yeah.
But thank God they remembered that I was joyful and that I loved them. And they didn't have that.
Yep.
And they're like, why are you hopeful?
Yeah.
So yeah, showing and demonstrating just joy, love, and care
Yep.
as you speak truth
It's huge.
is crucial, because you're speaking truth, but then they're going to remember how much you care
Yeah.
about
Yep.
them.
Yep.
And something else I just want to add real quick, and then I'll turn it over to you and hear about middle school Florence did. But a phrase that's been helpful for me that I've used with my volunteers, but even in my own life, I've remembered with my neighbors or with family members or whoever it might be. If you navigate the shallows well, you will
Right.
find yourselves in the deep end eventually.
Mhm.
And what that means relationally is it's like you get to know people and you consistently love them and care about them, and it's like you want to get it share and be real and be vulnerable, but it seems and feels shallow. It's like eventually somebody's going to, die, or they're going to get
Some
really sick, or
crisis.
some
Yep.
crisis, like you said with your buddy. It's like when life started to fall apart, it's like that's the deep end where you have these opportunities to share. It's
Right.
like if you navigate shallows well and relationally, you love people through the midst of all of the whatever it might be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guarantee it's like it may take years, but you will find yourselves in the deep end. And I think that's just loving people and being patient with people. So,
Yeah,
what
that's
did you do at Florence Middle School, John?
Yeah, so I think overall at Florence it was about testimony. So high school, Joey and Jesse, the high school interns, they got to share their testimonies, and that was really awesome. I heard a lot of kids were impacted by how they shared. And in middle school, we talked about how you actually do share a story.
Yeah.
I was actually talking with Steven, and he showed me this helpful little framework to tell your story. And a good story always has an old story, a turn, something that changes, and then a new story. That's how great stories are always laid out. And so, and I'll post this this diagram in the show notes and things like that. But really, the best way to tell your story, a simple way, not the best way, a simple way to tell your story is, what are 2 words that describe what was your life like before Jesus? I was selfish. I was fearful. I was lusting. All these different things. What was your? Just pick 2 words that describe your life before Jesus. Then, what was the moment? What was the day, the period of time where the Lord was working on your heart to make you realize you are a sinner that has broken God's law? You need Jesus to cover you. You believe he did, and you are now right with the God of the universe because Jesus did that for you, and you are now you're going to live for him, being on Team Jesus.
Yeah.
He is your king. Has there list a couple words that describe that moment, that day, that period of time where the Lord showed you that, and your faith was kind of confirmed or solidified. And then, what was life like afterwards? What has Jesus been changing in your heart? Because there always needs to be some change. And really, I was telling the students, it really helps to kind of mirror the old story and the new story. So if you were selfish before, how is the Lord working on your selfishness? If you were fearful before, how is the Lord working in your fear? So one of the things I was really hoping to do with this is to really help students be confident in their story if they have the full story. Yeah. And 2, if they don't, one of the things I said was like, if you haven't had that like turn experience, just put a question mark below it and then talk with a leader, talk with your parents. So parents, here's what I would really encourage you to do. 1, go over that story with your kids. Especially if your kids claim to be Christians or think that they are, go over their story. Help them articulate it. Because 1, if they are, man, that's going to give them such confidence. I prayed the prayer a bajillion times because I was not confident. And so go over that with your student. And if there's that element missing where they are actually surrendering to Jesus and acknowledging their sin before a holy God and needing Jesus to save them, if they haven't had that, good news, today's the day of salvation. Help them understand, like they don't have, a prayer is helpful. The prayer itself does not save them. It's the faith. We are saved by grace through faith. So help them to understand what their story is, and maybe if there's a gap, and help them to understand either the consequences for that gap, or help them to understand what they can do to start walking in faith.
Yeah.
So I would just encourage you, have those conversations, especially if your kid was at middle school at Florence last night.
Yeah.
Please have those conversations.
That's really good.
We had several with the leaders afterwards, and it was really cool. A lot of kids have question marks, and so it's good to always clarify those things. So, yeah. Aaron?
Can I pray?
Yeah, please, close us out.
Couple closing thoughts, parents. You may have a kid that is very, very clearly lost.
Yeah.
Your kid might be very clearly modeling fruit that they're saved. They might have friends that are lost. They might not have any friends. I just want to encourage you to trust God. He is sovereign, and He is the one who can change people. He is the one who saves people. He saved me.
That's right.
He saved Josh. He saved Stephen. He can save anybody. If He saved you, parent, trust Him, look to Him, and trust that His way is best.
That's right.
And His timing is best. So rest and be patient in Him.
Yep.
But as you are patient, remember that everything you say and do is being watched, and
Yeah.
you are modeling and putting on display what it looks like to be a follower of Christ.
That's right.
And whether they get it now or whether they get it later,
Yeah.
that's not up to you. That's up to God. But whether they get it now or later, you're modeling
Yep.
for them what it's going to look like. So I want to encourage you to hold fast and hold out, stay patient and rest in Christ and not in what we hope He will do.
Yeah.
We trust He'll do it and pray to that end, but we keep trusting in His timing. So, all right, let me pray. God, we're grateful for your Son Jesus, that you sent Him to die for us, that you saved us, that you made a way for us. As Josh said, that there is a turn in our stories, that we can now look back on who we used to be, and we can contrast that with who we are now. We have joy now. We have peace now. We have rest now. Whereas before we were lost, we were hungry, we were searching, and we didn't have real joy or peace. God, so we're grateful. And I pray, Lord, that you would help the parents know how to discern where their kids are at, where their kids' friends are at, that they would be able to plant and water well with their family as they put on display the kindness and love of you, God. Help them to do that, strengthen their faith, give them endurance. Lord, we love you and thank you. And pray in Christ's name. Amen.